And this is Brad Matheny. Today is May 2nd, Friday, the big crush day. Let's start off with that. I created a little video yesterday called Behind the Scenes Research for you guys to take a look at. This is really a look at, kind of how my decision making is created, how I look at the markets. This is about a 23-minute video. Couldn't get into too much more detail. There's still quite a bit more that I didn't get to show you with regard to my algos and some of my other research tools. But really, if you want to understand kind of how I make my decisions and how I try to advise you based on what I believe is happening, this is a good video to understand what is going on and why I try to make decisions the way I do. Now, as of yesterday, the SPY moved into a bullish trending mode over here on my measurement rotational modeling system. So this new trigger right here indicates that the markets are in a general bullish trend overall, and that's going to lead us to this major crush pattern in a counter trend mode to be essentially a very big potential bar. Now, I will warn you that counter trend crush patterns generally on their own are very big bars. So I'm going to give you an example here. A crush pattern would typically be maybe something like this: very big, very broad, and very dark. Big black bar. Typically, okay, we have set up this island formation here, this star formation, which sets up a pretty good chance that we're going to be moving down through the end of the day. I would still argue that given the markets, given what we've got, given this little island topping formation, we've clearly filled the gap from this lower level up into this area. I would say we're likely going to be moving to the downside today and possibly into Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday of next week. I still believe that is very, very likely. And I still believe that's probably the highest outcome trigger given what I've talked about related to the economy and the fact that, I'm still not seeing a whole lot of buying other than this moderate buying back over here. My crash index, this is daily. You can see the crash index has really stayed below, even though we've had this buying here, we stayed, kind of flat in a downtrend. So, I'm leading, I believe we're looking at kind of a downward trend right here, a pullback back into this 50% or lower level right in this area. I think that's the most common or most likely outcome now, given where we're at. So, the other thing I was going to talk to you about was the fact that, if we get anywhere up in this 564, 565 area, call it 565, then we have a chance at a big breakaway to the upside. So again, the crush pattern is a very big, typically a very big bar, a big breakaway. I believe you got about a 70 to 80% chance of the downside today. I believe that's falling very much in line with this setup, the way the markets have rolled, the way the price has consolidated into this flag, formed this island pattern. I can see a three-river evening star forming in this scenario, breaking to the downside, maybe not quite this big, maybe more like this, but, a breakdown. And what I think we're going to be looking at here is a very broad correction of trend. It's the end of the month. I think we're going to be looking at the potential of moving down into this 510, 525 area by next week, maybe a little bit lower, and that's going to put us into a fairly solid breakdown mode down in this area. This would be exactly what I'm looking for, hopefully. Nice solid breakdown back down here in this 500, 510, 515 area, and we'll see how it plays out. Now, the rotating of the Mint rotational modeling system going into bullish trending here is interesting on daily. It shows that, and again, this is something that now I mean, it is bullish. It's not going to change potentially. It could change today, probably won't. But we're going to see how this holds up. This could very well be a speculative buy the dip type of a mode. And we could still see the SPY, as I mentioned to you, trade into this sideways channel into consolidation. Remember, we still have this wide range consolidation way back between this 612, 613 high, all the way down to this 480 low. I keep telling you, as long as we stay in this middle area, we're in wide range consolidation. So until we really get out of this channel, this big wide channel, basically from here all the way down to here, this is just wide range consolidation. That's all it is. And again, within this consolidation zone, pretty much anything from these upper levels are viable to these lower levels are viable, meaning that we could see price move into and towards any of these upper or lower areas and still be in consolidation. So, again, the major crush pattern is a pretty big pattern. It is in counter trend. We are looking at bullish, explosive. And then we move into this gap reversal, gap breakaway, and this is in carryover trend and counter trend. Then we move into a carryover and an inside breakaway and trend mode. Then finally, we move around the 12th, 13th, 14th, 15th into a rally, carryover, crush pattern. So we have a lot of rotation. The way I would interpret all of this, breakaway, rally. To me, I see this as being bearish. I have been telling you this for weeks, but just highlight it again. I see this as being bearish. Then I see this as being bullish right over in this area up until this crush. Oop, do that again. Up until this crush being bullish. Then I see this as being very rotational. Let's see, get rid of that. And crash, gap, raise you inside. I see this as being very rotational, potentially maybe leading to a little rally mode right here on this inside breakaway. So that could be a rally. But again, I see this as pullback, trending, pullback, bottoming, rally. So again, pulling off a nice little rally. Crush bar crushes us sideways, downward. Gap potential moves us into a fairly solid rotating gap mode. Gap breakaway, Harami inside bar. So, if I were to come over here and try to kind of draw it and get rid of this big crush bar, I would be looking probably at trying to say, hey, this is what I see. I see a breakdown into a rally around the 12th, into a crush bar, and then sideways, and then maybe moving out of it. So that's kind of what I see happening. I see it really moving back down into this rolling 540 to 504, 500 area, and really just rolling through this sideways trend. Okay, let's go over to the QQQ. Same type of setup today. Let's come in here and grab the candles and make sure they're up front. And you can see this big island bar as of yesterday. Very interesting setup. This is a classic Three River Evening Star formation. Again, could very well move into a downward mode, consolidating up into the 12th, 15th, and then rolling back down. Could very easily move through this cycle, especially with the big crush and the gapping. We could easily move right back into that 50% level right around here or lower, and really try to recapture support back over here. So again, I'm not, and I will tell you that, if we get up above that, let's call it 490, right in this area, right there. We get up above 490, hypothetically, I want you to realize that we got a pretty good chance at a solid rally. So again, if we get up into this area and above, we could rally right out of this. But if we stay below that 490, really probably 492, really probably 492, then we're going to probably roll, and we're going to roll down into these lows by Tuesday, Wednesday of next week. Very likely, maybe Thursday, maybe Friday, but I think we're going to roll back downward. And again, it all boils down to, what I expect to see with this major crush and how it plays out with this gap reversal, gap breakaway in counter trend mode, carryover mode, and inside breakaway in trending mode. I mean, obviously, we've had the big earnings come out with technology. There may be a few other big ones, but it's going to come down to what traders believe is coming next. And as I mentioned to you, the crash index daily and weekly is not really showing any big strength. Okay, these types of low moves, as I've tried to highlight here, these are typically fairly solid pullbacks. You see here in 2022, we get down into these low levels. This was that broad pullback below this level. So when we get below this level in red, we tend to get into broad pullbacks. When we start to get above that level, we start to get into some moderate upward trending. So, a move back down into this area here, hypothetically, a weakening trend pulling back into this lower channel here, below this area, would indicate more bearish trending. Right now, we're kind of in that middle zone saying, hey, we're not going up, we're not going down. This is technically up above, this level. That is what I would technically call upward trending. This is what I would call downward trending, kind of below this level. And this is what I would call basing and bottoming. And again, I think these channels drift higher, but again, I think you can see here over time, we've continued to push higher and push higher and push higher. This was after COVID. You can see how deep COVID was and how the pullback was. You see, we went from bullish trending back over here in COVID. And again, this is essentially bullish. Let me mark this as bullish. This is general bearish, and then this is bottoming back down here. So you can see how we went from general bullish down into very weakening trend into bearish, stayed in the neutral zone, bearish, got down into bottoming here, rolled back out of bottoming, up through the bearish threshold, up into extreme bullish threshold here. And so, like I said, we've had this pretty solid breakdown below the bullish trending, and I got this marked incorrectly, but here we have this here, and this is actually bearish. So mark this as red. Mark this as bottoming, and then this is our deeper bottom. But again, my analysis right now shows, we're breaking down, we're struggling, and, I think we're going to try to move down back into this kind of consolidated range, pretty much right in this area. We'll see. We'll see. Okay, so let's go back over to gold and silver. Gold and silver having another wild day. Yes, the crush pattern could cause gold and silver to break down further, potentially retesting these lows. So be aware that if the markets break down, gold and silver could attempt to come back down and retest these lows. Personally, I believe gold is setting up a good solid rally phase here. This is 4 hours and 4 hours charts. So I'm really looking for gold to make another move back up here to the upside based on fear. I'm looking for silver to potentially make another move, as I've been telling you, back up into this 35, 36 area up here. And I think this is very solid consolidation. As I mentioned to you earlier, come back over here. Yep, this has it. This is daily. And, we are moving into a very explosive phase in metals. And I do believe this 38, 3900 area, maybe up into this 4200 area, is the next target. So I would suggest that be prepared for this area to get tagged over the next couple of weeks. I think that's a very solid move up to the upside right here. Good example drawn right here. I think this is the next big move for metals. 39, 38, 41, 42. I think this is really, when it takes off, it's going to rip right up into this area. And it could be next week. I doubt it'll be today, but plan for it. This is a big appreciation cycle in gold. I've been warning you about it for years. This is going to go on for another 3 to 5 years, and it's going to continue as I've been drawing here, through this cycle, which is the expansion cycle into consolidation. Then it's going to move up into the big, broad expansion cycle, which will go all the way up to 2030, 2031, 2032. Probably somewhere up around 15,000, 16,000 or more. But anyway, that's long term. That's 4 or 5 years out. Okay, running out of time. So we're going to come back over here to Bitcoin. Bitcoin's really kind of stalling right now. You know, it's pushing higher. It's pushing up into this consolidation range. I think it's kind of following along the NASDAQ and the SPY through this rally phase. You can see it started really right back over here around April 21st, right when earnings really started to kick in. And now that earnings, I think, are pretty much done, the bigger companies have played out pretty well. I'm looking really for that rollover, that topping pattern. So we'll see how it plays out. But I mean, I kind of do believe this is the next phase to the downside. I don't believe Bitcoin has a whole lot of room left back to the upside. I mean, it could, but I just don't see the markets like I told you. Nothing is screaming straight out buy other than buy the dip, and I still see we have much more consolidation to go. So, I would argue that it makes more sense to me that we're going to be moving into this kind of sideways consolidation before we try to move back out of it. Okay, so let's see how today goes. End of the week. Happy Friday, everyone. Glad to hear you're doing so well, and go get some today. Remember, be aware that it could go either way, but it's probably going to be a pretty big day, and I believe it's going to be to the downside. Okay, talk to you later.